Hi, this is Carolyn Snow-Abiad with the Piedmont Regional Association of Realtors, and today we have with us David Hudspeth, who is the York County Manager, and he's going to be discussing the 2022 outlook for our area. David, what can you tell us about what you have planned for us this year?
Good afternoon. Glad I could speak to you. I know we had previously met and I was going to give you some information about what the outlook for the county was and how that relates to your association and realty in general. So I'll just kind of try to hit some of the points I intended to talk about at that point. I know anytime I talk to a group that's in any way connected to development, or sometimes if they're not, the main topic is the growth we have in the county. And I think as realtors, there's probably very little I can tell you about the growth in the county, but I will just go into a few things. We continue to see strong growth in the county. I know we've had a lot of external factors over the last couple of years, but have not seen that have much of an impact on our residential growth. We have quite a few lots, several hundred lots that are platted throughout the county and ready to be built on. So we do have a very good inventory of buildable lots. We may see some slowdown on the number of new subdivisions coming in because we do have so many lots that are available now. But there is still a good, our permit history for 2021 was still very strong. I think with commercial, we have seen some lag there. So our permits are down. Again, that's probably related in some way to COVID and I guess people's reluctance to maybe build that new building for a commercial purpose or whatever, or it just may be that we had such a boom a couple of years ago, there's a natural decline in commercial. But still, numbers are strong, although they're not to where they were previously. I think one thing I wanted to mention that does involve the building community and development is the county is in the middle of a process now where we're updating our land development codes and our zoning code and things like that. And York County began really zoning back in the 80s, building codes and land development. And we've made a lot of changes to our ordinances over the years. However, they've kind of been modifications to the ordinance we had in place. So after 40 years of doing that, it's kind of turned into a hodgepodge of revisions and that sort of thing. So council asked us a couple of years ago to create a new updated version, which we've done. That is before our council now. We have entitled it Recode. There's a lot of information on our website if you want to see what kind of impact that has to the development community. I would say the vast majority of the changes in that document are related to formatting and just definitions and putting the material in a format that is concise. Well, it's really not concise. It's very, very large document, but it tries to organize it in a way that people can navigate it and interpret what it is they need to interpret when they're beginning a new development. There's things in there that we are addressing that may not have been in existence 40 years ago or certainly weren't prevalent. You know, we see things like food trucks now and tiny houses where those really weren't around when the code was adopted. Even things like tattoo parlors, you know, they weren't as prevalent as they are now. And those things were not allowed in our code previously. So we're trying to address that and make some of those uses, make accommodations for those uses. So I think just to tell you, we've had first reading of that document. We require 3 readings before an ordinance becomes law, and that is, we will have a public hearing. I would direct you to our York County website. There's a whole section on Recode that there's some Zoom meetings you can log on to and see some explanation of what has changed specifically, and the document that is there as well. So it's pretty dry reading, but just wanted to let you know that was in process. Just talking more generally about where we are as a county, we want to talk about our economic outlook. We have very strong county finances. We have very healthy reserves for the county. We have been conservatively budgeting over the last number of years, decade, and we continue to be very frugal with the funds that we have. We will expect to run a surplus in this year's budget. That's pretty common, and a lot of that is driven in recent history anyway. We budgeted, what we're going to spend for the year, and we've had a lot of difficulty in filling vacancies, particularly in the sheriff's department, our detention center. So we have a lot of vacancies throughout the year, and that contributes to a surplus at the end of the year. We do try to make accommodation for that, but we certainly like to be in the black at the end of the year, but we don't like to run large surpluses. But we want to assure everybody when we do have those surpluses, those are rolled into our capital plan. So that money is available to do capital projects for us, so we don't raise your taxes in the future. So it's kind of a savings account. We roll those money into that capital fund each year, whatever's left, and can take on new projects. I think you've probably all seen a lot of the projects we have done recently. We've got a new government center in York. If any of you went to the old one, the old ag building is what we called it, or the new one, you'll see just how badly that was needed. We've got a new family court. We made some improvements at Moss Justice Center, all needed improvements and all for very basic functions of county government. We do expect that, kind of in keeping with our conservative nature, is we have some outstanding bonds for those projects. We expect to have all those paid for in the next couple of years. So by 2024, we will not have debt that's for general obligation, just for taxes that are paid by the county. And just to clarify that, we do have debt for things like water and sewer, or we purchased a property for the Catawba Bend Preserve, the old Bowater property. For specific projects, we do have some debt, but just general debt for the county, we're on a track to be debt-free by 2024, which that is very unusual for a county government. And it's really a tribute to our council and our finance staff that has put all that together, put in plan in place that will allow us to be that way. Just kind of continuing on where we are with our finances. You may have heard about the Recovery Act, the federal dollars that were made available to the county, to all local governments throughout the country. It was quite a boon for the county. We received an award of $54 million for infrastructure improvements and the ability to combat COVID and other health-related issues. We've actually received $27 million, half of that money, and have programmed the entire amount, or most of it, to be spent over the next three years or so. And with that $54 million, that will allow us to do projects that were on our horizon that may have been pushed out a decade or close to it. We're going to be able to do those much sooner. And those are kind of improvements, like improvements to our existing buildings, some of them ventilation type related, HVAC, things like that. But also we have a very robust communications network for all our emergency responders, and that's everybody from the sheriff's department to the fire departments, 911, all those are connected, and we're able to erect some new towers with this money, provide some updated equipment for all our first responders in the way of communications. Also provide a lot of PPE, personal protective equipment for them in response to COVID and other health care issues. And then finally, we can use that money for water and sewer infrastructure. So we do have several $1 million going to pay for some of those projects. So that was it's a really good thing for us to be able to get that. We spent a lot of time prioritizing where those funds would be spent and also ensuring they'd be spent in accordance with the federal regulations. Talk about some things that may be a little more fun or interesting. We're really excited that we are embarking on some new park projects for the county. I mentioned a little bit about the Catawba Bend and what, if you've been around, you may remember it as the old Bowater Tree Farm. It's 1,900 acres along the Catawba River, has about 5 miles of shoreline, and it's just below, just north of the Catawba Reservation. That was going to be the Newland development some years ago, and there was a lot of reasons why that development was not able to happen. They put that property up for sale, and the county identified that as an opportunity for us to do some preservation of land and offer some recreation for our community. So we did purchase the property. It has been master planned now, and we are designing phase 1 of that. So I think in about a year or maybe a year and a half, you'll be able to actually access the property and access trails and have some river access. We think of it as something similar to the Ant Springs Close Greenway. However, this is something similar with the river access, and that's something they don't have. If you've been there, you know that is operating near capacity now. So this is a very much needed amenity that will work in conjunction with that facility. So I think we're very excited to start that project. It is probably something we will be working on for 20 or 30 years. We've got identified as much as $50 million worth of improvements that could be made out of there. But again, it's going to be phased over a number of years. But I think it will be a very nice amenity for our county, a regional draw, and would definitely contribute to the quality of life for our residents. Also, we just made some improvements to Ebenezer Park. That's a park that we've run for over 40 years, but it was in need of new parking, new boat slips, and it's got some new amenities that are going to be very attractive for people to go. It's really, the desire to go out there really exceeds our ability to, our capacity. So it's very popular. We've acquired from Duke Power the Allison Creek Landing, which it was previously just a place where you could had access to a couple of boat ramps. We're going to make that much more similar to Ebenezer Park. It's going to be and have some primitive camping. It's going to have RV spots and some ability for people to fish there and walk on trails. So that will increase our camping capacity in the area, but another nice amenity for our residents. And also wanted to talk about some existing parks that we have that we've never programmed very much. And there's in Western York County, we have Worth Mountain. That's a 2,000 acre preserve there that that's actually some game management land and some opportunities to do hunting and fishing there. But we want to do more passive recreation, some trails, and possibly some equestrian, things like that. Also have Nanny's Mountain near Lake Wiley. That's something we've owned for some time. Right now, it just has a very primitive parking lot and some trails. So we hope to do some improvements there. So a lot of good things happening with our parks. We've never been extremely involved in recreation. We don't do athletics or anything like that. We are trying to create a niche of providing a lot of passive recreation throughout the county. And the final thing I'll touch on, and if you're involved at all with county government or politics. You probably know your county council members, and they are 7 members who represent 7 individual districts. Every time we have a census, and with the population growth that we have to redraw those districts so that each district has about the same number of voters in that. So as you can imagine, the districts in the Fort Mill area are getting smaller and smaller because they're more populated, and the districts in the western part of the county keep getting larger because, you know, and comparatively, they're not growing as fast. So that will create some changes on our council as to what the district includes. So you may have a member of council now, maybe your representative, and that may be changing in the upcoming elections. So we're going through that as we speak. We've had second reading on that and really trying to finalize where those lines are going to be. That information is also posted on our website. So I invite you to take a look at that if you have an interest in how your council lines may be shifting. The only thing those lines really represent are who represents you as a county council member. Sometimes people confuse those with school district lines or something like that. It has nothing to do with that. It's only dictates where you vote. And the last thing I wanted to mention is invite you to follow us on social media. We've tried to have more of a presence there. Some of you may know the name Greg Suskin. He was a Channel 9 TV reporter, and he is now our public information officer. So we've put a lot of effort into having him provide more of a presence on social media. So if you do Twitter, Facebook, things like that, and you want to stay in touch with what's happening with the county, Greg does a great job of providing a stream of information there for you. So again, I would just invite you to follow Greg. In our York County Sheriff's Department has web pages and social media, and I think we get the most interest is with our Sheriff's Department and our animal control. So those are the 2 popular things for people to watch. But happy to answer any questions you may have. That kind of concludes what I was intended to talk about.
You touched on a lot of the things that I had on my questions here, but the one thing you didn't touch on, which I think everybody always asks, is about the Panthers facility and how that's coming along. And actually my personal interest is, how is the office park part of that going to work, and what's going to happen with that? Because I think that's going to be huge. I heard it's supposed to be a 5G office park. And so is that actually coming together as a 5G office park, or what's going on with that?
That is my understanding. And, you know, that is that property is located inside the city limits of Rock Hill, and they have been the most, I guess, involved with all the developments there. As the county, we are involved in providing them with their tax incentives. Excuse me. We provide them with their tax incentives in negotiation with the school district and the city of Rock Hill. So we were very involved in that as they came to the county. And yes, they were talking about 5G. They talked about trying to lure corporate headquarters and things. It's a complex. It's certainly, everybody's excited about the Panthers being there and their practice facility. And if you can now see it coming out of the ground if you drive down the interstate, or certainly down Cell River Road. So it's pretty exciting. It is going to be a tremendous facility for us. I think they will be very successful in attracting a lot of industry and office there. I don't know of any announcements as of yet. I think their focus is to try to get it built, but it is something that we're very excited to have here and have been very involved with them in the past. So I think you'll see there's a lot of construction going around that property that relates to their Interstate 77, but also Cell River Road and Eden Terrace, and all those roads around there are being improved as we speak. So it is very much on schedule from what I understand. And I haven't been able to tour on the property recently, but I know there's a lot of things happening there.
Okay. I guess my next question is, we have all this projected growth for the next 30 years for our area. And I'm assuming every county that has such a thing happening to them has a hard time staying ahead of this projected growth. Is RECODE going to help us stay ahead of this projected growth, or what are your
RECODE is actually, it's more of a regulatory thing, and we try to make our codes developer friendly, but also protective of the people that live here now, and compatible uses and all that. I think the fact that it's going to be something that's a little easier to digest, it's going to be helpful to the development community, and we've tried to beef up parts of it, but make some other parts more, I guess, conducive to commercial development and the kinds of things we want to see here in the high quality residential development. So I think, we've made some efforts in that area. The thing, I think there's a lot of things we do to help get ahead of the growth. And one thing I didn't mention, but everybody's probably familiar with is our pennies for progress roadway projects. Those are referendums we have that have a 7-year cycle, and we identify all the improvements we want to make on roadways, and the voters have voted for those 4 times now, and we finished a lot of roadway projects around town. Probably most of the ones you've seen that are complete are due to the pennies for progress. We will be initiating our pennies for progress, the 5th version, later this year, and what we do is appoint a committee, kind of identify what the priorities are going to be. So you'll be hearing about that in the fall, and identifying new projects that are going to do what you were asking about, which was help combat the effects of growth.
Okay. I guess last question here is, with the new infrastructure bill and money that might be coming from that for us, is there a one wish list item that you are like big ticket wishing we could get the money for?
Well, we've what was not included in the Recovery Act that we got initially was any money for transportation in terms of roadways and things like that. And it's different for every community. Because of our size, we have certain restrictions on how we use the money. Some of the smaller jurisdictions, when they got a much smaller amount of money, they were pretty much unlimited of what they could use theirs for. However, we had a very specific list of things we can use ours for, and roadway infrastructure was not on that list. So to answer your question, I think that's what we would like to see more than anything, is some additional help with roadways.
Yeah.
And that, my understanding of the second round of money is that's really more going to flow to the states. I think the state of South Carolina will likely put a lot of that toward transportation, but I'm really not sure if they've determined any priorities yet.
All right, David. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I don't want to take too much more of your afternoon. I think you did touch on all of the questions that we had about parks. You did touch on that. The only thing I would think of is that if you had anything else that was up and coming that you wanted to share with us about parks. But I feel like you touched on Allison Creek and Catawba Bend, and those are two beautiful
One
spots.
thing I did not mention, and I know probably have a lot of people with the growth in Lake Wylie, is we have a preservation initiative there where there's a tax district created that allows us to purchase property for the purpose of preserving it and providing passive recreation there. So that is in its infancy, and probably there are no projects that I can really point to yet, but you will hear things in the coming year about other properties that we have preserved there. And I know there's things like a dog park on the way, and some other, maybe some event venues, things like that, that will enhance the quality of life and the recreational opportunities in the Lake Wylie area.
Okay. So like you said, if we want more information, we should go to the website, which is
www.yorkcountygov.com.
Okay. And then we also have your social media channel that we should be following.
Yep.
Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Glad to do it. Thank you.